Hey everyone, ProGeologist here with Earth Solutions, back with a real quick pro tip, tip two. And this time we're going to talk a little bit about clustering. That is point clustering. Not specifically the statistics behind it, but a quick tool that will help get you up and running when it comes to analyzing point data at certain scales within a map. So we'll take a look at the aggregation tool that's available for point set data within ArcGIS Pro. Here we go. As already mentioned in the intro video, this pro tip is going to look at how we can aggregate data, specifically point data. And what we have on the screen right now are the City of Clovis municipal water wells that I have mapped out. A project, as I mentioned in a previous video, where I went out and I tagged the latitudes and the longitudes, as well as geocoded the addresses for each of these wells. And we went through and we have symbolized these based on pump capacity. Okay, and so you can see the yellow dots on the screen and the varying sizes based on their capacity. Here in my contents pane, we can see that we've got a low capacity of 0 all the way up to about 1940 at the max. And so we can see the various wells throughout the city of Clovis. A couple little guys out here that are either shut in or abandoned and destroyed, or that are ran by the state and have not been recording their data to the city. But nonetheless, we've got capacity mapped on these wells and here on the map. What we're going to do with this real quick short video and this pro tip is we're actually going to learn how we can adapt these and aggregate these wells based on their capacity. Now, this could be done a couple of different ways or for a couple of different features. For example, if I wanted to aggregate water well capacity or water well volumes, if they were known in my data set, I could do that. If I were dealing with oil and gas wells and I wanted to aggregate data within a certain radius, I could do that as well. So this quick tool is found by going into the feature layer. So I've selected my Clovis water wells. I've clicked on feature layer, and you'll notice if I come under the drawing group, there's this aggregation tool that is available. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that. I've got a couple of options. I've got none. Keep that in mind. That will undo the aggregation. I can cluster. So this is a statistical cluster that dynamically operates based on the scale that you are at, the zoom in, the zoom out for your map. Or you can aggregate by binning. Now, we're not going to worry about binning today. We're going to focus predominantly on this clustering feature. I'm going to click that now, and you'll notice what it does on the map is it groups wells relatively close to each other. Okay, so it's going out, it's finding essentially a statistical distance at this scale by which it can group wells together. In the left-hand pane, in the contents pane, you'll notice that I've now got a clusters feature, point cluster, and it's telling me, hey, I can have 2 clusters or I can have no clusters, essentially. Now watch as I zoom in and I zoom out. As a matter of fact, I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and what we'll start to see is this will start to dynamically cluster itself. It will change. And so as I zoom out and I let this reset and re-aggregate the data at an appropriate scale, boom, now I've got these 3 wells, as I pointed out earlier, the 2 that DWR controls at the state and the one that's been abandoned or destroyed by the city of Clovis. Those are aggregated to 3, and these are now aggregated to the 17 within this general Clovis area, and 4 kind of out here near Tarpe Village. We can see how those all kind of reside. Now, if I zoom back in and give it a minute to refresh, the same thing will happen. It will re-aggregate based on my scale. So now we're back to 2 and 2 and 2. We've got the 2 from DWR. There's that one out here near Temperance Avenue, as we can see. And so we have all this going on. This gives us a nice little view. Now, if I wanted to zoom in, same thing. The scale is going to adapt, and therefore the aggregation is going to change. So we can see the one by the Sierra Freeway, the Highway 168, and Clovis Avenue. Those are no longer grouped or linked together. Pan back out, it will refresh. Right? So we've got all sorts of stuff. Really cool approach for aggregation. But the question comes up now. Cole, you say, how do I actually get to the point where I can see my volumes? It's nice that I can see the number of locations or wells, features in this case, right? Aggregated together. But what about my volumes? That's where our contents pane comes back in. So I'm going back over here to the left. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on clusters. There are 2 options here. I've got symbology and I've got properties. We are going to use both, but we are going to start with properties. So that will pop up. And what I need to do now is I've got summary statistics in here. These are the basics. It's given me a point count. That is the given. That is why we're able to see that 2 or 17 are aggregated depending on our map scale. What I am going to do is I'm going to come in here and I want to know, based on capacity, what the total sum is. And so you have an option. I could look at the mean. I could look at a standard deviation. I'm going to look at the sum of all wells when they are aggregated. And so now I've created a new statistical field for result, field name being sum capacity. Here's the alias, matches sum capacity here. When I now say OK, nothing changes. Oh no, but that's okay. Why? Because I can come back here to clusters, right click, and now I'm going to choose symbology. Let me pin this symbol pane just a little bit better so you can see it. And you'll notice here under summary field, point count, drop down, there is my alias, sum capacity. If I had not gone into the properties tab and set the statistical analysis that I wanted, in this case, the summation of the aggregated data, I would not have this available. I would only have the point count available. In this case, I'm going to choose sum capacity. It's going to apply it and check that out. You see how that changed on my map immediately. We're at 2800, 2620, 1050, 2600, 0, right? Now, if I zoom in and zoom out, guess what? That same dynamic capacity will change. So depending on where my scaling is, I can have a completely different analysis. So this is a really cool approach, really quick, really snappy, and in my opinion, kind of slick way of analyzing and grouping these data based on X, Y, and of course, if you will, latitude and longitude. But who messes with that? No, I'm just kidding. But at the same time, it lets you set this on each field. So any field within the attribute table, you can calculate and set the statistical summary and analysis for. So there you have it. Real quick way to aggregate data in a map based on an attribute field, and it lets you rock and roll with it. Now, if I wanted to undo it, as I mentioned before, I can come back up here to aggregation. I can choose none, and it will reset back to that data field that we're symbolized upon. That is plain and simple, straightforward. A view, a pro tip, if you will, on how to use the aggregation tool to make analyses quick and snappy, help you take a look at summarizing data and looking at statistical analyses from a spatial standpoint. Hopefully you've learned a lot from this video and you've enjoyed it. There'll be a lot more coming down the chute to help you out with symbolizing and aggregating data. We'll look later on at Moran's eye and statistically clustering data, hotspots and cold spot analyses, all that fun stuff that you're going to need as you look at our world and the geosciences, if you will, through the lens of GIS. We'll catch you in the next video.